Hello everybody, welcome to my video. Today we're going to be talking about Avatar and I'm going to be drawing some scenes from it. Just like all my videos. So the new Avatar, The Last Airbender live action came out on Netflix, and I'll be honest, I wasn't really excited for it because if you didn't know, there was a live action movie of this in 2010 and it wasn't that good. But also I just love Avatar, the original cartoon, so much. It's one of my favorite shows, so I wasn't really like super excited for a different version of it to come out because there's this whole thing with live actions recently. I don't know, the One Piece live action was really good, I really liked that, but most of the live actions that come out these days aren't that good, and all these remakes and sequels, I just think people should stop making new things. I mean, they still do, but I don't know. It's a hit or miss, I guess. Anyway, let me talk about the drawing first. I picked one frame of everybody to draw from the original cartoon. I picked one of Aang, one of Katara, and one of Sokka. I only did the original 3 gang because I didn't want to do too many things because then it'd be way too long. You could say that Zuko is in the original gang, but he's not. Okay, it's fine. I'm sorry for not drawing him if you wanted to see that. I did a slightly different style. Well, my cat is rubbing against my microphone and now he's purring. Really, I'm trying to record. Yeah? Is that what you think? That's cool. Anyway, what was I saying? This is actually my usual style, this just black pencil line art. Yeah, I think I just like it better. I was trying that like textured chalk brush with brown line art a lot, but I still think I prefer this. It's fun to do the textured line art, but this one's just my style, I think. Not super rendered though. I mean, I tried to do it a bit more rendered, but I think I just need to do a bit more learning, because there's always that extra step that I don't think I'm getting, that extra rendering that I don't really know how to do. So, Avatar. Okay, I'll be honest, I wrote a bunch of notes when I watched the series and I recorded a whole thing on it for voiceover, but then I lost my audio file and I don't have the notes anymore, so I'll try my best to remember what I thought about it. I was really upset about that. Okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna be comparing the live action to the original. No live action adaptation is ever gonna be as good as the original unless they make specific changes. You can't change it too much or change specific things because then people will get mad, but if you don't change anything, you'll never do it as good as the original. So what's the point? So it's really hard to kind of go into this whole remaking thing, but either way, I'm going to talk about the differences between the live action and the original cartoon. I don't know much about filmography. I do enjoy the ins and outs, but I don't know anything about them, so I can't really talk about that. And how good it is as a show, because I'm kind of the type of person who just watches shows and enjoys them. The only thing that I really notice is kind of character writing and interactions with people. I don't really notice much of the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, like the CGI in it was kind of jarring in places, but you know, I'm not really one to talk about that or the editing. I'm not sure. But for the characters, I can talk about them. There were lots of character changes. With Sokka, he's kind of, in the original, he's like sexist and he doesn't think women can fight. But then Suki teaches him that women can and that they're great warriors. And he has that whole arc and he becomes better at the end of it. But they just didn't have that at all. It's like they didn't even want to touch it. But you have to have characters be bad so that you can change it, so that it's a good character development and a good character arc, because that's what makes a good story. But if you don't have any bad character traits, then you can't change it and you can't have a good story. I think they just wanted to avoid that, like having a bad trait like that in a main character, but I think they should have stuck with it because it's not making a bad character, it's making a good character arc, you know? Sorry, anyway. Aang was pretty much just Aang. I mean, he's a child actor, so, you know, there were some rough points between all of the actors. I'm not sure if it's the acting or the writing, but a lot of the times it felt very stiff. It's just the fact that I noticed it at all, and it kind of took me out of it at some points, where the interactions just felt kind of strange. They didn't change Aang's character. I mean, and they've made him a bit less of a goofball. I think with all the characters, they kind of had them, but not as intense. Maybe it's because it's not really a children's show, but yeah, Katara felt a lot less controlling. Actually, she wasn't really controlling at all, which is kind of a big character trait for her in the original. She's got this like bossiness and controllingness, but she's also got this like caring side and this really strong side, which they didn't have for most of the show. I didn't think they were gonna make her very like the fighter type, but they kind of did at the end. During the final arc, they made her this kind of like strong, super cool fighter, but they didn't really have that throughout the rest of it. I don't know, she just felt a lot more subdued as a character, as did the rest of them. Zuko, I think, just was Zuko. They didn't really change much about his character. Him and Ira's relationship, I think they did a good job with. That was probably a really hard thing to get because it's such an important part of the story, and I think they did a good job with that. I remember I wrote down in my notes that the Fire Lord was silly, not scary. Because I think that he's supposed to be this like really scary Fire Lord, but they didn't show him really doing anything at all. I don't know, I just don't think he had that many scenes. He wasn't very intimidating. And along with that, they showed the effects of the Fire Nation and all the towns that were affected by it and the temple and all of that. But up until the end, it didn't feel very current. It just felt like the recovery of a war. Every time they showed the Fire Nation, they weren't really doing anything. Up until the final, where it kind of amplified it like tenfold. Yeah, it feels like they didn't have any build up to the final. Like they showed all of these things in the final that they didn't even have bits of throughout the whole thing, like Katara's fighting ability, the Fire Nation's strength, and their current intensity in the world. I don't know. Oh yeah, I also remember they didn't sing the Secret Tunnel song. I love that song, it's so good, and instead they just explained it. I was so mad. They sung like a line of it after they finished talking in the background, and people were talking over the top of it. I was so excited for them to sing that song. Something else was, there's a line right at the start of the show that me and my sister say all the time, and it's, I gotta pee.
I gotta pee.
And they didn't have it. They didn't say it. Not that I thought that they would say it, obviously. It was just something I took notice of. Oh yeah, when they had Suki take off her makeup, I was like, oh my goodness, she is beautiful. I couldn't even. She's so pretty. I had to write that down. I'll admit, I watched lots of interviews of the cast after the show because they just kept getting recommended to me, and they seem like they have lots of good chemistry together. It didn't feel like that a lot. I mean, maybe it was the writing, maybe it was the setting, but I don't know. I think most of the time when I was watching it, I just wanted to watch the original. Look, I think they did a good job. It's very pretty. It's hard to adapt such a well-loved show into anything different because there are always going to be differences that people don't like, and there are always going to be things that you didn't do that people will be mad about because there's so much potential as well. Because the original was, a kids show, so I mean that would hold back a story, especially such a heavy story like something about war. It didn't really, because it was still such an amazing show and highlighted all those effects really well in the original. But I mean, without it being a kids show, you could do so much more. So there's so much potential with something like this. Maybe we just shouldn't care. Maybe we should just watch it for what it is. And we have the original. Like, that's the thing. You don't need to copy something exactly because we have the original. We don't need an exact replica. So it's fun to see how people adapt things into different styles and different ways, like live action, but also, why change a good thing, I guess? I don't know what I'm talking about, I'll be honest. I mean, my opinion with live actions is just make something new. I mean, I love inspired by things. A story can be inspired by another story, but be different enough that it's its own thing. But if you're recreating something and you make either so many changes or no changes, what's the point in remaking it? There was Cinderella, which the 2015 Cinderella is actually one of my favorite movies. It's so beautiful. Just such a well-made movie. And it didn't follow Cinderella exactly. They had so many amazing story plots, like, because the original Cinderella was so simple and it was easy to build upon that. They added so much, chemistry between the main characters and so much more backstory to Cinderella. It's a good movie. And yes, it was recreating something into a live action, but it didn't feel like the same thing. It just felt kind of inspired by. And there's tons and tons of Cinderella stories and Cinderella movies. Like, people just make that story over and over again, but it's not the same, I suppose. And then there was Mulan, which I watched once and I didn't like it at all. Sorry. It's been a while since I watched it, so I'm not really sure, but I just remember being mad that they didn't have it be a musical. And with things like that, if you're gonna make a completely different story, why make it that at all? Just make a different story. Like I think there's a new Snow White coming out, and they're saying they're not having a bunch of the original elements, but why make it at all if you're not going to do that? It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. Anyway, let's go back to Avatar. Yes, I love Avatar, and the thing about Avatar is that it's a kids show, so there's lots of things that I wish were slightly different about it. I mean, I wish the elements were built upon more. So I understand making a live action, but I don't know. The pacing as well is something I forgot to talk about. Was so fast and like exposition dumping all over the place. I understand that it's such a long series and you want to condense it into, 8-episode season. I mean, it feels so short nowadays. There used to be like 25-episode series, but those were all like 20-minute episodes. And now there's like 40 to 50-minute episodes. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the binge thing. Like, it didn't feel like you really connected with the characters as much at all. I mean, everyone's journey just seems so quick and short. And the Jet, I love Jet, and I think the casting on that one was so good. But his arc was like minuscule. It wasn't even half an episode. That was crazy. I mean, I understand that there's not much to that, but it was like on top of plots. There were like 4 plots going on at once in that episode. It was insane. Speaking of shows, I've been watching lots of 90s movies. Jumanji, While You Were Sleeping. Okay, Jumanji's in the 80s, and they're so good. Movies have changed so much. It's crazy. It feels like all the new stuff that's come out is it's just supposed to be pretty and the writing's not very good. It's kind of sad. I mean, I know it's like a reoccurring topic that current writing is kind of bad, and movies just feel like they're all to a script or too cliche, but the bad type of cliche. But to be fair, most of my favorite movies are kids movies or 90s movies. But even now, kids movies now are bad. They're so catered towards children. What happened to family movies? I don't know, I just like animated movies, obviously, because I'm an artist, probably why. Or maybe I just like to have a good time. Okay, hi. I was listening back to this and I realized I felt like I was complaining about new movies, but I just want to say there's been some really good movies recently too. Like, Nimona was so good. Man, it was such a good movie. I mean, we're coming back to animated movies once again, but I mean, the One Piece live action was really good as well. I don't know. I can't think of any recent movies, but there aren't too many bad ones. It just feels like there's a lot of bad ones, which I think is always going to be the case with any generation of movie making. So I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm not sure if they'll do the whole romance between Katara and Aang thing. I mean, they didn't at all in the first season. And, like, the thing is, the actors, I think, are, like, 12 and 17 or something like that. Which, In the original, it's like 12 and 14, and then 14 and 16. I don't know, man. I don't know if they'll do that. Oh yeah, I think they got a season 2 and season 3 confirmed. I mean, as if like this is getting renewed, but not such good shows like Lockwood and Co. I loved so much. I can't tell you. I think I watched it like 3 times, but it got cancelled. And Julie and the Phantoms also got cancelled. So sad, man. These good shows getting cancelled. These crazy things getting renewed. Nah, it wasn't bad. Okay, as a show, it's not that good. Okay, I think looking at it as a show by itself and looking at it compared to Avatar doesn't make it any better. I mean, like, there aren't many points for adapting it. I think most of the points go to adapting it from the original cartoon, because as a show, the pacing's strange, the world building, like, it feels like there's a lot, but also like there's lots of holes. It feels like there's a lot, but it's not very smooth, and the writing at times feels strangely stiff. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of good things about the show, lots of things I didn't like, but it's a show. I enjoyed watching it. Not as much as I enjoyed Percy Jackson. And like, there was some controversy to Percy Jackson, I think. But man, that was a good adaptation. Here's a good other example. Percy Jackson, we have the original book, the weird 2010, I actually don't know what year it was, the weird early 2010s adaptation movie, and then the current series. Original book, so good, but so much to build upon. So many good changes because it's originally catered towards children, much like the Avatar cartoon. The weird 2010s movie, completely different. Like, the original writers had absolutely no say in the movie, and they did whatever they wanted and didn't stay true to the original plot and made the bad changes. Happened with both of those. The weird Avatar movie, the weird Frankenstein Percy Jackson movie that had very, very strange changes that nothing like the books. And the current series, here's where we stray. Percy Jackson series had Rick Riordan as head, I think, producer, and they made good changes that I really enjoyed, having read the book. I read the book just before I watched it because I wanted to read it and then watch it. I really enjoyed the changes that they made. Some of the changes I didn't like as much, like my favorite scene got changed or got cut out. I was a little mad about that, but I understand. It's okay, because the rest of it was really good, and they made changes that I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed watching a lot of scenes that weren't in the original book. I think that was really good. But with the Avatar thing, I think there were people who worked on the original who were gonna work on the new one, but they left because the makers of the current series didn't agree with their terms. They wanted to change things that the original writers didn't want. Okay, I'm done ranting now. Here are all the images done. I only did 3, but it was still really long. I don't know, I think they came out pretty cute in the end. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you had a lovely time. Feel free to subscribe, like it if you like it. Check out my Instagram for more art, and I'll see you next time.